This video is brought to you by a huge mountain of drugs. Gix Yawgmoth Praetor versus Thada Adel, Sisay and the Dragon. Couple of lands, some means of unblockable. Hopefully can get ourselves up to Bolas's Citadel so that we can actually start doing something in this game. Yeah, gonna need some decent draws there, but I don't see a need to ship it back really. And we draw into Ophiomancer on our first turn. I'll get down the Tormented Soul here. Thada Adel casting Swiftfoot Boots. And we get into a land which is really good, so play out the land and the Dorothy Warlord. And then we're going to start swinging next turn anyway, so I don't think it really matters if we have first blood here. So we'll go in at Thada. Currently have my eye on Thada and Sisay, but obviously the longer the game goes, the more of a threat the Dragon becomes. Vamp Tutor from the Dragon at the end of my turn. Mana Crypt from Dragon. And then following that up with a Molten Echoes. Obviously going to name Dragon with that. Relic of Legends for Sisay. Even more protection for the commander. Lightning Greaves this time. I dare say that they want to get down their commander for 3 mana obviously, and then 1 mana for the Swiftfoot Boots, so hoping to make a land next turn. Holding up a single blue mana is relevant. They've also mixed the snow and regular basics. We draw into another land, speaking of snow lands, so let's try to land at the Gix. And now it is relevant that we've played this in 1v1 on the channel but not in multiplayer. This is relevant to all of my opponents, so we could have our opponents swinging in at each other here for the sake of card draw. We'll swing a couple of damage in down the middle at Sisay. And those land with Gix still in place, so we can lose 2 life and draw 2 cards. That draws us into Toxic Deluge and a Dark Ritual. Noxious Revival was cast by the Dragon and they went for a fetch land with that, so leaving the Vamp Tutor in the bin. And we see the first dragon, it is the Nesting Dragon. So that doubles up the Nesting Dragon. And we get 2 of those, then making landfall with a fetch, so they'll get a couple of dragon eggs with each instance of a land entering, which totals 4 here. And now we are seeing 5 damage from the Nesting Dragon, so not encouraging our opponents to swing in at each other, unfortunately. And then at the end of the turn, the copy of the Nesting Dragon getting exiled. Sisay plays Diabolic Tutor. Still not seeing Thada, 4 cards in the blue player's hand, and it is a Nesting Dragon from a Clever Impersonator, so they throw the Lightning Greaves on there. And we'll see if we eat this one as well. We do not. And there is a land so that we can hold on to a shuffle effect for the Bolas's Citadel. I'd want to, or I would have to, play out a land, go Dark Ritual into the Bolas's Citadel, and then if we find another land on top, then it's done nothing. So it's best that we still have a land to make for the turn, so that we can play one off the top and maybe continue chaining off. But like I said, we could do with a means of card draw really, so maybe aiming for a big Phyrexian Fleshgorger would be a good idea. So we'll just throw out the Ophiomancer this turn. If we keep eating a lot of damage from dragons, we'll just have to go for the Toxic Deluge, unfortunately. But we'll see what we can get going with these attacks first. Not going to be blocking anyway, so we'll send Gix in down the middle, and then the 2 unblockable creatures can go in at the dragon player. I don't think we've attacked him yet, and he attacked us last turn, so it's a good excuse. So we're going to have to discard down to hand size here, but I am going to take the damage. Well, if we draw Chrome Moxes, we might not have to. But, yeah, okay, a Vamp Tutor. Maybe we don't have to discard down to hand size here then. Let's just go through to the second main. Drew into Chrome Mox, a Dorothy Slayer, and a Vamp Tutor. So throw out the Chrome Mox. Moxens are pretty much associated with CDH and stuff like that, so I'm hoping that my opponents seeing this don't automatically think that this is an incredibly strong deck. I actually built it for 1v1, which is why the Mox is in here. Now, what to get rid of? Maybe the Dark Ritual if we're not going to be reliant on Bolas's Citadel, but we'll need that for the Fleshgorger, won't we? So let's just get rid of the Dorothy Slayer under that, and that way we can hold up the Vamp Tutor. Ophiomancer makes us a 1/1 Death Touch Snake at the beginning of every upkeep, as long as we don't control a snake already. Great, a sneak attack now from our opponent. Yep, and the dragon player is going to be focused on us apparently, so maybe we're just going to have to go for the activation on the Gix and try and get some free dragons. Is that going to have the Dragon scoop and take all the dragons with him though, is the question. He is missing out on card draw here. Now we might get to see what Sisay tutored up. That is a General's Enforcer. Wouldn't have thought that he would tutor that up, but maybe to protect the commander. On Serra's Wings, enchanting that. So +1 Flying Vigilance and Lifelink. So we're going to have to deal with a lot of flyers this game, apparently. Thada making landfall, and that is the first Dragon Egg. Then it's Thada Adele, and they can afford the Swiftfoot Boots. And Thada playing it pretty conservatively there. I don't think there's any islands in play, in all fairness, so they actually can't swing in with their commander, making use of the Island Walk. So let's go for the Vamp Tutor at the end of the turn. I was debating between Cabal Coffers and Extra Planar Lens. I think making use of Dark Ritual into Extra Planar Lens would be fine here. So we'll get down our mana doubler. So obviously it's round to our turn now. Get down the Marsh Flats and we'll make a Snow Swamp with it. Then cast the Dark Ritual. And we'll have to make sure to tap a land before we go for the Extra Planar Lens, because we're going to have to exile the tapped land. Noteworthy that the blue player is holding up priority over there. It seems as though Sisay isn't F6 through the turn either, so I might have responses to things. Could be Pongify or some means of counter spells. Obviously this player can have swords and the like, because don't forget they can tap down their legendary creature for a mana. That lands, so we've got double mana now. We definitely want to go for, we don't want it with Prototype, just let me make sure I do this right. Yep, we want to pay 7 mana. So there we see the Phyrexian Fleshgorger. Should really do that during the second main, I suppose, because if our opponents remove the Gix, then we'd want to recast that this turn. Want to refill my hand here ultimately, and then look at going for Gix Yawgmoth Praetor with that ability, and get some flyers into play to block all this damage. But definitely wanted a 7/5 Menace Lifelinker in play. So we'll just go in at the Thada player here. We can go in with the Death Toucher. If they block that and kill it off, then Ophiomancer will make a new one anyway. And if it's just a tap Death Toucher, then we've got this in the way for blocks regardless. Yeah, we'll take everything in towards Thada here. So dealing 3 damage there and drawing 3 cards. And the mono blue player takes all the damage, so we'll take 3 life and go south of our 20 life, unfortunately. And speaking of losing life, there's a Mana Crypt. A Wayfarer's Bauble as well, so yeah, it's all stuff that we want to be playing really, as opposed to discarding to Gix. So yeah, I'll just get down that Mana Crypt and the Wayfarer's Bauble. Far too tempted by the by all the ramp here, just turning ourselves into a bigger and bigger threat. So playing and cracking the Wayfarer's Bauble, we've got a mana floating, so I suppose at this point we might as well just play out the Ginger Brute, although we could leave that till next turn, I suppose. Yeah, if we leave it till next turn, it's got haste, so we can dodge a board wipe, potentially, and still hit someone with this anyway. It'll only be 2 extra mana next turn, which I don't think will be relevant if we want to go for the Gix ability, which I'm looking to do at this point. Also drawn into Mirror the Cursed, which could be relevant. There aren't that many hasty creatures that you can put in a mono black deck, but I did put as many in here as possible for obvious reasons. More fast mana from the dragon player, nowhere near all the colours available here, but there is obviously a sneak attack in play. They've gone down to 0 cards in hand though. So yeah, this is the problem. If I point Gix over there, and we actually get more of our opponent's dragons into play than he has, then I just bet he's going to scoop on us and take the dragons with him. Alright, well, swinging elsewhere at least, the 5/5 or the 5/4 dragon, offering up the trade against the copy. Thada not taking him up on the offer. Still can't cast anything with that 1 card in hand, apparently. Yep, there we go, so scoop before I even activated it. So thankfully, didn't get a bunch of dragons in play from that guy. Seeing at Sisay Weatherlight Captain now, so we're going to be looking over in Sisay's direction as opposed to Thada, I would have thought. I don't think Thada will have all that many big scary creatures. And our opponent does have the mana available here thanks to the Relic of Legends in order to activate the Sisay, instead deciding to cast a Masako the Humorless, which is an excellent card to include when you've got this thing in place. So yeah, they can attack him with a Vigilance creature, tap it for mana and still block with it when it's tapped. So anyway, the 3/4 swings in towards us. Another land makes a Dragon Egg. And now we see Thieving Skydiver, so could take some fast mana, could steal the extra planar lens, although it won't do anything for them, but they do go after the Mana Crypt. Thieving Skydiver, a very underplayed card. I'm not sure why I'm not seeing this thing all over the place during games of Commander. Alright, so our turn again. We get into Animate Dead, which I don't think we can make use of. No creatures have died really, seen very little removal, so that's probably just discard fodder for us. I imagine if we swing in the Phyrexian Flesh Gorger, it will get blocked by the 2 dragon eggs, but this is for the lifelink anyway, so not particularly bothered if that gets blocked. So let's say we hit with 3 creatures, the Death Toucher and the 2 unblockables. That will give us 8 cards, which means we can pretty comfortably go for Gingerbrute and still discard 7 to the Gix. So yeah, let's do that. Tap 1 land down for 2 mana, so Gingerbrute into play. There's no creatures with haste over here, so we can swing that in over there. So activate Gingerbrute, can't be blocked by creatures except with haste this turn. Obviously the boots and the greaves are giving haste to our opponent. Then it's just a case of keeping our fingers crossed and hoping that we actually keep our board intact here. So Gingerbrute into the left against no hasters, Flesh Gorger at the blue player, and the Death Toucher as well as the unblockables in at the blue player as well. So the 2 dragon eggs blocking the Phyrexian Flesh Gorger as we thought it would, so we're going to gain 7 life here, but we'll lose some life to the Gix as well. So the dragon egg's going to make a couple of 2/2 flyers with fire breathing. That'll make it more difficult for us to get our flyers through, so Mirror the Curse not going to be all that much use to us, I don't think, so it's fine to discard it to the Gix. And we'll draw 4 cards. Lose 4 life. Okay, sad to see the back of a Villis, but now then, do we keep a Villis? Because we could draw way more cards and make the Gix way more relevant. Keep putting off this Gix ability. Definitely throw down a land. So we've got 11 mana available to us. Alright, I'm going to put off the ability yet again. I think Villis is just too good to not play here while we've got the opportunity, so I will play it. And then if we see a board wipe during this turn, we've still got the Animate Dead onto probably Villis. And we can hopefully set up with Gix again from the command zone and slowly make our way up to that ability at some point this game. It's good that we've got a flyer against some of these flying attacks as well, because the blue player does have 4 flyers in play now. Still got Sisay abilities to worry about, but still hard casting things from the hand, so first strike and reach on Halana and Alina. And then after that, casting Mangara of Corondor, tapping down the Masako, the Humulus, and the Rock in order to do that. So they've only got 4 mana available now, can't go for the Sisay ability. Seem to be playing pretty shy with that anyway. Plus counters being thrown over to the Sisay with the Halana and Alina. And our opponent's got a little bit of a predicament here. We can throw the Villis in the way of the Sisay. I'd probably take the commander damage here, to be honest, even though I don't want to. Yep, they do swing in towards us, so we're going to draw 8 cards there. Swinging in with this thing as well will block. They'll get the lifelink, but yeah, we're going to draw a lot of cards here, so go through to the blocking phase. Could throw the Villis away to save life and just go for Reanimate or Animate Dead next turn. Maybe throwing Ophiomancer away is fine here because no one's going to be blocking this thing apparently. So let's throw the Ophiomancer in front of Sisay. And we'll take 3 so that we can draw 3 cards. Is that greedy? Yeah, I think that's greedy. Let's just block that thing. And then if this player wants to try and go wide on us, we'll draw cards to the Villis that way at least. We can throw -3/-3 around the board in total with Villis. It'll take us 6 life to do it though, but obviously it's more card draw for us if we do that. Another land into the Nesting Dragon. The blue player is at 3 cards in hand. Okay, that is in Bolas's clutches. So, in response... Now they're going to have haste on that thing. That's really annoying. That's a lot of damage we're taking here. Yeah, they're going to get us exactly here because we're going to have to take life for Villis's ability in order to get rid of any of these flyers, and they can give Villis haste as well. I think they've got exactly 19 on us if they turn everything in sideways. Should have taken the ability while we had the chance apparently, but there was no guarantee that we were going to get into anything that could deal with all this. So Greaves goes on to Villis, and we assume all the flyers going sideways at us here. Okay, leaving us alive I think. That is 8, 10, 12 and 17. Yeah, if they'd swung in with this then they'd have us here. Oh, we go down to 2. So we might not win the game, but we do get a chance to activate the Gix Yawgmoth Praetor at least. And we're not at risk of losing to the Mana Crypt now, because our opponent has stolen that from us as well. Alright, so there's Iara. That is a means of card draw for us. I think it's only on black creatures. Yeah, another black creature enters, drain your opponent for 1. So we'll throw out the Iara so that we can gain a little bit of life here. Iara does trigger on itself, thankfully. We have our opponent lose a life there, so triggers the Vilis, and they will draw a card, going up to 3 in hand. They don't have any black mana thanks to a lack of Urborg, thankfully, so can't activate this thing, but obviously still get the static ability. So seeing as how we're going to gain life during combat here, I am going to go for swinging in with the Phyrexian Fleshgorger as well as some other things unblocked, and we'll just try and lose the game whilst having a bunch of other people's stuff in hand. As long as I activate this once and show what it does, then I'm pretty happy. So probably only going to draw 3 cards here. I imagine the Fleshgorger will get blocked, but it's these two go into the right, these two in at the left. Don't want to waste any mana on the Ginger Brutes, so not going to put what will be 1 mana into it, but 1 floating will die to mana burn as well. So the Dragon Egg and the Thieving Skydiver being thrown in front of the Fleshgorger, and we are going to gain 7, then lose 3 and draw 3. Just to make the ability better. It's noteworthy that if we wanted to keep our opponent from gaining the dragon tokens, we could deal all the damage to the Thieving Skydiver there, but don't think it really matters at this point. Obviously deal some damage to our opponent again, so Vilis going to draw a card. So we go up to 10, then back down to 7, and don't manage to draw into the combo unfortunately. Sisay's Divining Top, Bolas's Citadel, and then the 4 mana artifact that gains you a bunch of life on casting spells that I can't remember the name of. So might as well drop a land here. So I'll go for Mirror the Curse just so that we've got a flying blocker, not that I think it's going to be relevant. And we could afford getting down the Sisay's Top now as well, but we want to discard as many cards as possible here. Obviously ideally we would go through to the late game and not have people be worried about us and deal damage to us in the early game too much. And put a bunch of life into the Gix and attacking in and drawing cards, or Necropotent, something like that, fill up our hand and pretty much exile a bunch of cards from someone's library and take the cards for ourselves. But we get the ability off with Gix here at least, going to discard the entire hand, and we'll pray that we get some good stuff from the Sisay player. Well, it doesn't look too good. A Chromatic Lantern, Hero's Podium, and a Cheville, Bane of Monsters. Whole bunch of lands on the top there, unfortunately. So probably did our opponent a favour if anything. At least we got a black creature though for the Iara, not that it'll make any difference. Vilis doing a nice job of refilling the blue player's hand. They're back up to 6 now. Although it's noteworthy that we do have some legendary creatures held back as blockers now. The Gix jumps up to a 6/6, a 5/6 Iara, a 6/5 First Strike Flyer in Miri, and the Cheville is a 4/6 with Death Touch. This is thanks to the Hero's Podium, of course. And we could sacrifice the Ginger Brute here to gain 3 life. I think it will block more damage than will gain life here, so yeah, probably just holding it back is best. It's noteworthy that Iara would go pretty well with the Orpheomancer, because at the end of an opponent's turn, if we haven't blocked with anything, then we could sacrifice the snake to draw a card and then make another one during our upkeep. Obviously we're not swinging in with the snake at that point, but it's a worthwhile trade-off for free card draw, I think. See if we get an activation from Sisay here. We do, that is the first one, so could probably give everything evasion or something. I'm grateful that it hasn't been your typical take over the game on turn 3 Sisay deck. Okay, and they get out Odric, Lunarch, Marshal, so at the beginning of each combat, creatures you control gain first strike until the end of the turn if you control one with first strike, and you can do the same for flyers, death touchers, double strike, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, all the rest. So basically they've got indestructible and flying, so they can go straight over us here if they would like. Throwing plus counters on the Masako, and can definitely fly in towards us here. So it's certainly flying that we've struggled against this game. Obviously chose not to wipe the board previously because I think we would have been in a worse spot for it, to be honest. It would have just it would have delayed our demise ultimately. Bit disappointed with the activation on the Gix there, but it could just as easily have been a really cool activation, so this is just what happens in games of Commander. It's a bit of randomness to it, thanks to it being a singleton format. They obviously lose the Mana Crypt and the Vilis over here, but have already had a bunch of damage dealt with that. So now it is fumble at the end of the turn from the blue player. Return a creature to its owner's hand and gain control of the aura. Not sure I've ever seen fumble become relevant. So the On Serra's Wings now being moved over to the Nesting Dragon. The fact that the blue player had a dragon player in play for a short period has made all the difference here. It's noteworthy that Sisay can still be activated here if he's willing to tap down his creatures, which he should be. Mystic Sanctuary just put the fumble back on top, and obviously continuing to make dragon eggs. Then copy enchantment coming into play. And there's only one enchantment to copy, so it's On Serra's Wings again. And that should go on the Thada, you would think. Okay, instead going on to the dragon token. So they still don't have evasion for the Thada. I'm surprised this thing didn't go on there. Lightning Greaves over to the Nesting Dragon. And the On Serra's Wings is legendary, so they had to choose which one to keep and chose to keep the one on the dragon baby token. Mirage Mirror now, making a copy of Sisay Weatherlight Captain. Then Odric triggers during every combat, so able to get some keywords here. It is First Strike and Reach. And turning sideways with all of their dragons. So the Enchanted Dragon being blocked and a Baby Dragon being blocked as well. So all the dragon tokens being blocked and 5 damage being allowed through. And it looks like it's Sisay's to win at this point. Should go for a tutor at the end of the turn. No, instead just going through to his first main phase. Our opponent hard casts Meren of Clan Nel Toth and gets down the General's Enforcer again as well, which was bounced previously. So Indestructible and all the rest of it back onto all of his creatures upon Odric's resolution. And the Sisay now a 10-10 thanks to the plus counters. No vigilance on our opponent's stuff yet thanks to the removal of the enchantments, so our opponent taps out here. A lot of damage coming through, but not enough to take him out, I wouldn't have thought. Throwing away the Thada and the Dragon Egg going in the way of the Sisay. There's no kind of trample or anything, so no threat of commander damage there. Fumble just went and bounced the Sisay again, and playing another land for another dragon token. And it's noteworthy, this does seem to be legendary tribal, so all of the creatures here are indestructible, because they are all legendary humans, thanks to this thing of course. The Odric is in play thanks to the Mirage Mirror. Surprised that we're not seeing the Thada come back into play. Our opponent doesn't really seem to be all that keen on hitting with Thada and getting a potentially big scary artifact from our opponent. Could have Evacuation or something like that maybe, Ether Spouts. Just decided to scoop, so Sisay wins this one. I'm grateful that it wasn't a typical steamroll everyone Sisay deck. They played that pretty fairly and it seems like a more fun legendary human style deck. So hopefully you all enjoyed this visit to Gix and all the other commanders we saw today. Be sure to leave it a thumbs up if you did, and please consider supporting on Patreon as well, because that is pretty much the only thing that keeps me doing this channel nowadays. My loyalty to the patrons, massive thank you to them for supporting the channel as well, and I'll see you all in the next one. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.